Hey, race fans, welcome back to Beyond the Track with Daniel Blair. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Today, we have Carlen Gardner with us on the show. Carlen, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you guys? Thanks for having me on.
We're doing good, man. We're just doing this 2021 season, going well so far. It's been going good for you. We'll get into some of that, but I want to go back to your beginning, and I want to start with your location. You know, some riders run their number on their bike based on where they're from. I would have been a 209, so not really a cool number. But you live in a cool area with a cool number, so it all kind of worked out for you.
Yeah, it definitely did. That was one of the things when I turned pro that it had to be 805, you know, because if you're from California at all, everyone knows the 805 area. So that was one thing I wanted to lock down, and the fact that I got it, I was super excited about. So I was a little bit nervous last year when I got a 2-digit number that I was going to lose it. Someone might have swooped in, especially like my brother, but I told him, I was like, you couldn't take that. So luckily I got it back this year. Unfortunately, it wasn't a 2-digit number again, but happy to be representing the 805 that way.
Well, when you lose it again this year, get a 2-digit, just make sure you call the AMA and say, look, just in case, don't give that away. Or if you do, call me first so I can approve it, because I got Luke Neese running my old number 125, and I like Luke, so I'm cool with it. But if someone else popped in with that number, I would have been like, no, you got to get my approval.
No way. Yeah, no, it's reserved.
Hey, so 805, though. I get this all the time because I'm from California. I'm up by Sacramento. People are like, are you by LA? Are you by, you know, because they think of LA. The 805, it's not SoCal. It's not really Central Cal. It's like its own little pocket, you know, and I know that area very well because I have friends that went to college there. I used to ride for Powerhouse Yamaha, so I know that area. But what do you call the 805? Like, what is that?
It's the Central Coast. I mean, you refer to it as Central California, but then to get more, you know, in depth, it's Central Coast, because we're about 20 minutes from the ocean where I'm at in Paso Robles. Super, super good area, just wine country area. I mean, within a town of 30,000 people, I think there's like 312 wineries or something. So super unique area. But yeah, I always just say it's basically halfway between San Francisco and LA. It's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah, nice spot too on the 101. I mean, you can hit north and go if you want a vacation up there, or south. You say Paso Robles, so I think of Powerhouse for sure. Tim and Frank Pilge sponsored me for a long time. Did you ever ride for Powerhouse?
Not really. I've known the Pilge family for a long time, and I've been lucky enough to do some work with them at the beta stuff they got going on right now. But no, I haven't. I rode on Yamahas and I ran the graphics. I never technically rode for them, but yeah, that was the shop around us for a long time.
Dude, remember when they went from the little place to the big, like, I think it was like a Kmart or something. Dude, that place was awesome. And then Topher Ingles, I have to imagine you know old Topher.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we've talked here and there. We've never been super close, you know, because as he was kind of going out a little bit of racing professionally, I was just kind of about that B or A ranks in amateur. And I still wasn't really known in the area, I would say. I was still pretty under the radar. So yeah, we'd know each other here and there. If we saw each other, we'd be cool. But I mean, I wouldn't say we were like super close friends or anything, but good guy.
I'm talking all my generation stuff. So yeah, you're a little younger, so you're coming in at the tail end of all my people from that area. But now let's start with you in the beginning. Again, you're a Central Coast guy, so you have some options on where to ride, but at the same time, you're not in like a heavy mecca of riding in tracks. I know Castillo is there and some private stuff, but tell me about your beginning and just how it all got started for you. And then obviously your brother's kind of part of this story too, but yeah, just go back to the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, to make it long story short, I mean, I grew up racing go-karts. My dad raced dirt track, late models for a long time when I was younger, and that was like my world. Like, I couldn't wait to get in like a little mini sprint or something and race, and we just raced go-karts on the weekends. And then we rode here and there, but we would go to the desert for Thanksgiving every year. And then it wasn't until I was probably 8 or 9 years old, I got into racing a little bit more, and, you know, my dad kind of just got out of his racing a little bit, and we started just racing dirt bikes for whatever reason. And then it just kind of naturally switched over. I didn't care as long as I was doing something racing. And we never really took it serious. And then we just rode, we hit some local races. We tried a couple of nationals, got absolutely destroyed. You know, what are we doing? And then it wasn't until Super Minis that we're like, okay, let's try to go Loretta's, you know, because we'd always pick 2 nationals a year. We couldn't do anything. It was always Mammoth because that was a California one, and we'd try to hit Loretta's if we made it. And then Super Minis, first year we tried it, I ended up making it. Got like 20th or 25th, something around there. Nothing great. And then made it again, Schoolboy one the next year. Nothing great again, 20th, 25th. Went the following year, ended up winning a championship in the 2-stroke open class. And then that was kind of like, it was kind of weird, you know, like I wasn't planned or knew I was good at all. And we showed up to Loretta's. It was kind of like my backup class. Schoolboy one was my main class because I was, you know, you do good there, you open eyes. Yep. And we're like, oh, we'll just race the 2-stroke open class. And we bought a 252-stroke, and I rode it 3 times before I showed up. Anyway, I ended up winning that class. So then I was like, okay, like we didn't really get much from it. We met a lot of people, which now have carried over, you know, 8 years down the road now to where I'm at still. And that's when I started taking it seriously. And then I started, you know, I went homeschooled after that. After that year, it was like I was my junior year in high school. And then I just started riding and trying to train more and figure it out. And then we did 1 year A, and then we're like, might as well go pro, you know, I mean, if you're going to get whooped, might as well go pro and get whooped and learn, right? Like figure out what those guys are doing, figure out that speed, figure out what you need to do. So we went pro kind of early, I would say, prematurely for what a lot of people would consider. But I think it was the biggest eye-opening thing for me. You know, it was either, okay, I'm way off, I need to figure it out and do something different, or this isn't for me. And moved down south to I was in Menifee with the Mosman family, lived with them in a motorhome at their house. I lived in a motorhome for like 2 years, trained with Nathan Ramsey, did the arena cross thing, got my Supercross points, all this. And it really, it shot my graph of my level way up. And the eye-opening level of training and what is needed and the people to be around and the resources you need to have, the people you need to know was just elevated so quickly. So that kind of changed my game. And then I never was good in Supercross, really. I had a really good arena cross. I won a couple lights races, made all the AX mains, but I was like 10th, wasn't ever crazy good in the AX ones. Supercross 2017, I couldn't have been more lost. Thinking about it now, I should have never been on a Supercross track in 2017. I had too many people in my ear telling me what you need to run, how you need to do this, how blah, blah, blah. And I believed everyone and didn't trust what I knew or trust abilities. And once I kind of got away from that and really decided to treat things, you know, how each person's different, you got to learn. Then I went and got a personal training license to learn about my body, different ways to train, kind of learn about that way. That elevated my training a lot more. Started working with a lot of little kids and doing riding coaching and stuff. And that opened my eyes to like, okay, yeah, I can say someone can ride this way, but do I really ride this way? So I started holding myself accountable for a lot of things. And then 2019 came around, and then I was a completely different person, you know, just how I viewed everything. And that was kind of, I wouldn't say my breakout year, but a really good year. I still think I have a lot more to come. I made 10 of those 17 main events in the 450 class that year. And that was when it was a possibility to do something here. So that was a really good year. Got hurt at the end of that year, missed most of 2020. Luckily caught the last few rounds in Salt Lake City in 2020, made 3 of the 7 mains, but it was like, I wasn't me. Didn't feel like I was who I should have been. Had it all off season, and here we are now. I mean, I feel I'm way better than what I've ever been. Competition is strong, but that doesn't shy me away. You know, it only makes it more interesting to figure out how we can be better. So here we are now. I mean, we're five rounds in, going to be our 6th round. We made 2 mains, but I'm happy with it. You know, a couple of things didn't go my way, and that's fine though. And we had a really good night on Tuesday. We won the LCQ, and then my goal was just to go as hard as I could, as long as I could in that main event. And it worked out. It was a good solid 18.
When you sit back now and look at your past, and that's what we do these shows for, is to kind of dive into those early chapters, so it helps people understand who you are. You talk about your amateur career and how you got your butt kicked at first. I mean, we've seen this a lot in the past, where you get these amateur kids that are just, they fly through, that everything's good, they're dialed, and some it takes a little bit longer because of the amount they do it, the amount of resources they have. Now that you can kind of look back on those years, what do you think held you back from being the rider you are now? Which again, I mean, you're riding Supercross, you're battling in 450 mains at the highest level. back then you're getting your butt kicked by kids who probably don't even ride anymore. So just looking back on those times, what was the, I guess, the big hurdle that held you back from being a super competitive amateur?
One was a lot of riding. I mean, we didn't ride maybe once every couple of weeks. That was just, because my dad was the one who would take us riding, and me and my brother both rode. So it's hard to keep up with, 2 bikes and have our dad take us and everything. And so one, it was a little bit of riding. 2 was, like I said, kind of listening to everyone, what you should do. Oh, well, we did this and we did that. We ran this. This is what you should run. That doesn't, all the kids I work with now, that's what I tell them. I was like, don't listen to what I say necessarily. Don't listen to what anyone else has to say. Like, you got to experiment. You got to do what works for you, because it can be a completely different way. And then your story is how it should have been, right? Like, so I think a little bit of being pulled different directions, a little bit of bouncing around, a little bit of not riding enough, I think held me back. I don't think I would have ever been any amazing amateur rider. I definitely would have been a step above what I was and a little bit further ahead of when I went pro. But all that stuff led me into the right spots to where I am now, and the people I met and the lessons I learned and all that stuff to how I treat things now.
When I watch you ride, I mean, your fundamentals are pretty strong. Like, you could definitely tell, like, you ride the bike correctly. Obviously, it probably comes from the coaching too, because when you're delivering the message to other people, sometimes you look in the mirror and go, man, I don't do that right. I got to get that better. So there's that side of it. I guess my question would be, when did Supercross jump on to, into your life? Because you seem to ride it very, very well. And I know there's people that take a long time to get going, and maybe you have too, to a point, but when did Supercross become part of your riding and racing, and how did it go in the beginning?
It went really bad in the beginning. When I first started riding it, and you ride it, if you ride Supercross scared, you're going to get hurt. There's a fine line of doing something over your head and riding scared. And when I first jumped on a Supercross track, I had all the right people around me, but I rode so scared, and I got hurt quite often, wrecked a lot of bikes. And then it immediately turned. And when I did arena cross, like, that was when I trained with Nathan Ramsey 3-4 days a week. I was with Eddie Casillas at the gym at ICOR, with the Mosman family. Like, everything just surrounded, I just went through the roof. And that's when I was, I could ride it really well. Everything was natural. The bike was perfect. Everything I looked at, I could hit. I hit whoops good, etc. And then that was in 2016. In 2017, I went back to, not even really knowing how to ride. It's Supercross has always come more natural than outdoors to me. I don't know why, but that doesn't mean I wasn't bad at it either. I've always meshed well with Supercross, because motocross is like, if you're a man and you can just,
it's just a
go
grind,
for it.
right? It's just a grind.
Yeah.
Where Supercross, it's a lot more in your head. Like, it's timing and technical. It's not just this guy right here.
Yeah, exactly. So I've always been like a conservative person in my riding. Like, I'm very calculated, and I try not to take risks, but you have to every now and then. But Supercross has always been that calculation, that precision, that, take your time, set yourself up, thinking ahead. All that stuff applies more to Supercross, which suits my personality a lot better. Outdoors, I've just never been that, I wouldn't say that grinder. I've never been that guy who can show up and go throw down 235 as hard as I can out of control. It's just never fit well. I've always been wanting to try it out, and I keep trying a couple nationals every year because I want to figure out how to do it. But I've just never meshed well with it, and I don't enjoy practicing for it. Supercross has always just been the thing. That's what everyone says, but it's true.
I can't even argue, man. I stopped racing, I think, nationals in 2001, and then raced all the way to 2015. So I did the last 14 years of my racing career, kind of avoided it. But at the same time, there was always benefits to riding it. I still rode it a lot because I think it helps you gain some of that top end speed that you need. So to your point, you keep doing it and keep finding it, because it will help you out there, especially when you're a calculator, right? That's how I was always super calculated. So I needed some like raw speed to kind of even help me in this stuff,
Yeah, exactly. That was this summer. I didn't really want to do anything. And, we'll circle back to this, but like, I put together, the program we're on, and with a couple bit of help. So I got to come up with the money to do it. And outdoors, logistically and financially, is really hard to accept, especially for how much parts you go through and the body pain you go through. It's just, and I was kind of avoiding it. And one of my main sponsors, big guy, part of our group, told me one day, he's like, dude, like, he referred to it as a business world. Like, you got to spend money to make money. Like, you got to go get your ass whooped. Sorry for my language. Get your butt whooped for, that time to learn those experiences. Like, whether or not you get 40th or first, you're going to learn more and got a gate drop. You're going to pick up your intensity, your fitness, et cetera, to go into Supercross. And I rolled my eyes and I was like, fine, we'll go do Paula National. And so that's the only one we did. But yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, as much as I don't want to do it, you got to do those races. It's gate drops too. Yeah. And you get to be around, get that race pace going, and it helps.
So I have a brother. We grew up riding and racing together. Just same kind of thing as you. I don't know what's the age gap with you and your brother?
3 years, about like 2 3/4, but about 3 years.
Yeah, so I'm 3 3/4, so about 4. How cool has it been? I mean, has it been cool? Because me and my brother, we were buddies until he turned pro. And then we had some hard time. We actually had some like blowouts at local races, which we'll get into that because I know you've had some fun local races in the last couple of years. We'll get into that. But me and my brother were best buddies until all of a sudden we had to race each other. What's it like with you having a brother that's close in age? I mean, he's got talent. I remember last year we had him on Race Day Live, and then he makes the main event. So it's like you got a brother who's got some skills too. What's it been like just dealing with that growing up and into your adult life?
Yeah, well, luckily it's been good. We haven't raced together too much because I've always been that one above. Every time I went to a class, he'd come up right behind me. We've only raced together a handful of times on some like outdoor stuff, and he put me to work.
Really?
So, yeah, just amateur stuff.
Does he just love it? Does he love the outdoor stuff a little more?
He's gnarly. He's just big and strong. I mean, he's 15 pounds heavier than me, 4 inches taller, just strong. And so outdoors, he'll go. I'll be faster than him on a practice track. But yeah, I avoid riding or racing with him as much as possible. We train together and he rides Supercross with me, and I usually got him on the Supercross track. He's getting a lot closer, which pushes me. Yeah. As much as you hate it, but it makes me like, okay, well, I got no one to chase really most of the time. I mean, we have our own little private track we ride, so it's me and him, and then occasionally, we have a couple other people come out. But I only gauge myself off of my lap times, or if he comes out and throws down, how far ahead I can be of him. So it's super good to have someone to push. It's really annoying when he's close to you. And so I think next year he's going to try to come up to the 450 class because, like I said, he's bigger, but he's trying to stay in the 250 class to get those experiences and learn a little bit more before he gets into that 450 stuff. It will be interesting, but yeah.
Maybe next year you'll be like, let's go, bro. Let's remember that day on that outdoor track that you got all bad with me? Well, welcome to my world now.
Yeah, luckily I'll use my arm pump excuse is why he beat me that time. But
hey, so one of the biggest challenges of being a privateer is obviously the support. A lot of riders, they do it in their van, they do it in the truck. Maybe they only hit local races. You've gone one step further now. You're with the BWR guys. I know you're at their house right now too. Just tell me about that relationship, and not only just the relationship, but now your responsibilities that you carry along with being a racer. Because I think there's challenges to that, but there's also benefits to that too. So, I mean, what's it like right now?
It's hectic for me. So I'll kind of fill a backstory. I met Brian in 2016, racing outdoor nationals. That relationship came from Race Tech. Chris Checkers from Race Tech introduced us to each other. He said, hey, Brian wants to go do some outdoors. Never met him, never talked to him. Flew into Illinois and showed up at his shop one night and sat there till 4 a.m. as he built me a race bike, and we talked, and we, that's how we kind of met. And it was just one of those things, we got along. We had the same views. He came from not a lot and just worked his butt off for everything. And I wouldn't say, I've not came from a lot. I've had, my dad helps me with everything we do, but I've always held myself accountable, and I've always wanted to do stuff on my own and figure out how I can do it on my own. And he respected that. We came in 2017. He had his team with his brother. They had a title sponsor. They wanted me. The title sponsor wanted someone else, so we didn't get to work together in 2017. 2018 came around. They ended up losing their main title sponsor, and I had nothing at the time. And I said, dude, I want to be a part with you. The stuff this guy knows is is out of this world. So I was like, I got to have this guy in my corner. He's the engine guy. He's the suspension guy. If anything and everything goes wrong or something, like, he knows how to fix it. So I was like, okay, let's, like, you have nothing right now. I have nothing right now. Let's put together, I'll hold your team name. Let's kind of carry this over. And so we bought a little trailer, got some pop-up tents, and I held the Team BWR name for the West Coast portion. And then I jumped on a 450 for the rest of the 2018 season because he was able to do those rounds because it was closer to him. And we kind of just had the whole season. That was kind of like when we really, really bonded, because we were able to do that whole East Coast season. We made a couple main events. And then 2018, we ended up sitting in a hotel one night. And I remember him saying, he was like, dude, it'd be so cool to, like, have our own semi or something like that. And I was like, hey, I'll get one. Watch this. So I kind of took on the role of manager at the end of 2018 season. I just went to work on creating a team. I was going to put together a 4-rider team and see, I didn't know where it was going to go, and tried. I found a guy that, was going to give us a trailer for the season, lease us the trailer, but I couldn't find the truck. I couldn't find, I went through 35, 40 meetings with people, phone calls, trying to get a truck reserved. And last meeting I had on my list, it was like Thanksgiving, something around the very 1st of November. Last meeting, I said, hey, here's our option A. We're looking for a sponsorship. Option B, I want a semi truck. And this company said, no problem, let's do it. So that's kind of cool how it came about. They bought a truck, got the trailer, got it wrapped, drove it out to California where I live to load everything. This was like after Christmas, and then put together a 4-man team with 2 other 250 guys. And at the time I had Tyler Etticknap racing with us as well. And that's kind of how it all started. And I've just basically have ran this program side by side with Brian. And for the last couple of years, this is our 3rd year doing it together, with a bunch of other people helping as well. So it's super unique how it's come together.
Great. I mean, I know those guys. I know Brian. I know Kyle. I raced with them in arena cross, so I know that he does great stuff. I remember Kyle's bikes always, dude, the engines, they shredded. The suspension was always there. So it's good to have him on your side. And is the relationship kind of, again, where he handles the motorcycle side of things and then you handle the team side of things? Because if you're doing it all, like, I don't even know how you'd be able to even ride and race, but those responsibilities split, it's got to make it work, right?
Yeah. So I basically handle all managing, logistics, sponsorships, marketing, everything to do with the team and getting the rig there and setting it up. And Brian is in charge of the logistics of, having the engines good, having the suspension good. In 2019, he drove the truck for us and did all that stuff.
Did he?
Or in 2020. Yeah. So 19, he did the engine, suspension, truck, drove the truck, oversaw 4 motorcycles throughout the year, blah, blah, blah. And then I just, we had some injured riders. I would cycle in riders. I was in charge of contracts, all that stuff. Yeah, it's both ends. It, like I said, if one thing fell through at all, it would completely implode. Luckily it's been good. And, Brian takes on a lot of responsibility on his end and I take a lot on my end, but it's worked out, and we've kind of found that evenness of how it can work. We know what's too much. We know what's too little a little bit now. 2019 was too much. It was a great year for us and we had our best results, most main events for him and I. But that was too much. We had so much going on. So we've settled it down. I've kind of accepted a little bit more help. We've been lucky enough to get a little bit more sponsors to where I can, this year I can have some other drivers. So Brian doesn't have to take on that role. He can fly home each week, be with his family. He can do some work at home. He's not on the road for, 3-4 months because he did that, for 5, arena cross in 2012 or whatever it was all the way till 2017. He did an entire arena cross. And so it's been super good. And that's why we mesh so well. And if it wasn't for me, if it wasn't for Brian, if it wasn't for the Tidwell family, it wasn't for my dad, doing each individual part, it would not work as well as it does. So on the outside, it's an amazing program for what it is. And I'm super excited with how everything's been going. And so I just want to put in good results and make everyone happy.
Well, you're right. You're riding great. So obviously you're getting your work in, but is that hard to do? Because if you have so many responsibilities, and for me, you sound like the kind of person that will take on responsibilities. It's no problem, but it's the stress of having your mind thinking of that stuff all the time, making sure things don't slip through the cracks. Does that make it hard when it goes, okay, now I got to go ride and do my training and focus on me, but your brain is always kind of thinking back to your responsibilities? I mean, I have to imagine that's a big challenge that you have to overcome every week.
Yeah. So I always tell people race day is the least stressful day of my
Man.
week.
And that's like everyone else is like, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
finally, just race.
Yeah. Well, like I get stressed, you get your race nerves and all that stuff, but like I get to kind of just sit there and think about riding, look at lap times, look at video, etc. Like think about being fast on dirt bike Sunday through Friday. I'm worried about a truck driver. I'm worried how I'm going to fly him in. I'm worried about what parts we don't have. I'm worried about what, if the mechanic's good, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. What bike has this problem? What bike has that problem? It gets wild, but like I said, it's taken 3 years. We kind of have it worked out, and communication is a huge factor. And like I said, in 2019, I took on a lot more than I should have, and that's why it almost burnt me out. Luckily, everything went perfect, but this year I took on a little bit more help. I accepted a little bit. I kind of risked a little bit more budget money in this area to save this area. It gets hectic, and then on top of that, I 2-3 times a week I'm training 14 to 15 kids at home, and I had a gym class we taught for 2 nights a week that I gave that to my brother now because I couldn't do that. That was the 5th thing I couldn't do. But like I like to be busy. I've always had like entrepreneur guys that I admire, and I just always have had that mentality of having 4 or 5 different things going on to set yourself up for the future, because you never know which one hits, falls through, etc. Racing is what I want to do. Racing is what has created my life as it is now, and so that'll be my first priority all the time. But I've always been interested in kind of venturing off to the physical training side, to the dirt bike training side, to maybe a little business thing here and there, and working with my that's been my personality, and that's what my dad's always been that guy and been a hard worker and a grinder, and I've always just admired that. And so I've been, especially with being around Brian and everyone I'm around, they're just, you got to go get it. That's always been my personality, and I don't mind taking on a challenge and taking on too much work. My girlfriend hates it, but I got to do it to stay.
I admire you,
sane.
Man. You're my kind of guy. I'm the same way. I've always been just, if there's daylight, I got to be doing something. But I've also learned over the time, which at different times, sometimes you take on too much because you're ambitious, and it does cause problems in other areas. 2019, I mean, how did you pull off your best season while also somewhat burying yourself? It seems like did you just find the edge of the line like anymore, and it was going to just all blow? But did you just find that line and that was it? No more past this?
Well, I mean, that kind of goes to like the race day is the easiest day. Like I know I have the ability, and I know I put in a lot of work for racing. That's like I said, my priority. I'll get up, get my riding in, my training in, then I'll go work or something. And 2019, I was way over my head. When I got to Saturday, it was like the easiest day. So it just all flowed perfectly, and when everything just went together, it is kind of crazy to think about. That was my best season. But when everything is crazy around you and you just get to enjoy a day, like how easy things will go when you're enjoying that day is incredible. So that's just everything went smoothly that year, because every time I rode a dirt bike was the happiest I was necessarily. I wouldn't say I was sad, but like you can just smile, you get to ride and not worry about anything. And so, I mean, that's just kind of, I think, a huge factor on why each race day is, went so good in 2019. And I'm going to carry that over into the rest of the season. Absolutely. And that's what, even to this day, the race day is the most enjoyable, freeing day for me. But I still, when you don't get the results, you're like, oh, well, maybe you were too stressed and blah, 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 blah. But you got to look back. I mean, each season's hard. Each season gets harder. Each guy's faster. I'm faster than I ever have been. It just, things got to go right. And sometimes you get a bad start, and sometimes you fall. Someone, takes the line. It's so hard to not, to be perfect every weekend, when you're right on that bubble too, between me, Etik Knapp, A-Ray, Chisholm, those bubble guys. You'll see each guy, you have a perfect night and you don't have a perfect night. You have an okay night. So it's a fine line. I mean, we'll keep pushing through the season. We just got to make sure that I'm in the right spot and on each round and get good starts and just be there and not even worry about what else is going on Saturday. Worry about it on Sunday.
One question on the team management side before we move back into you as a racer. What is the I guess, I mean, you got sponsors to deal with, and not only deal with, but get them. You got to get these sponsors, and you got to keep those relationships. You've got the logistical side as far as the hotels, the travel, the truck. On the management side, what is the hardest and the easiest part of that job? And I know that might be hard to answer, but what part of it for you, maybe it's your personality, is like, no, that's fine for me. What is that easy side for you? And what is the thing that you're just like, this is my hardship doing this?
The hardest part is meeting every sponsor's expectations, I would say, you know, because you have your rider responsibilities, then you have your team responsibilities. I've been lucky enough to have the companies that we're a part of that accept and know, you know, that I have multiple roles, and they can accept, you know, I don't do certain, you know, responsibilities that other managers may have with those sponsors. And as far as, you know, getting photos, race updates, et cetera, et cetera. And then the easiest part is, I would say, almost, I don't want to say getting sponsors. I don't want to sound like cocky saying that, you know, but like getting sponsors to me is always been easier because I've taken a different route on how I do it. I think a lot of guys, you know, for a privateer, they make the mistake of going and relying on one guy.
Mm-hmm.
And if that one guy falls through, you know, you're kind of SOL.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember, I can't remember who exactly it was. It might've been my dad, you know, cause he did this when he raced cars. You know, you don't go for the one guy for the 10 grand, you go for the 10 guys with the 1,000, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I built this team off of, well, I didn't build this team. I took over this team and run it off of, you know, 30, 35 people, you know, that are all pitching in. And it's not just one guy. We have our big guys that make it very important to have. And we couldn't do it without them. But it's all those little ones, you know, you just fill those spots. You fill a couple spots on the rig, big and small, a couple spots in your jersey, a couple spots on the bike. That's always been like the easiest part to do. Cause you know, any breakfast joint, plumber, contractor, whatever, you just, hey dude, like, this is my dream. You want to be a part of it? Cause they love it. You know, they love the story too. They want to be a part of something cool, and they know me, and they know, luckily my dad has built, we're in a small area, and my dad has built an amazing relationship with a lot of people. He's an electrician contractor. So he knows a lot of guys. And that's always been the easiest flowing thing. I can push that off until late October, November, and be like, hey, nail them all down and be set. But then I think the also other end of that, you know, is the main industry sponsors. It's hard to please everyone all the time. You know, some guys want these responsibilities, some want these, and I kind of go bash my head on the wall sometimes with, when they'll come back to me and, hey, I need this. I'm like, I don't have time for that.
That's the juggle, right? That's just the juggle in time.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I think you're doing a good job. Obviously, you guys are continuing to grow it. I'd like to move back now to you as a racer. Dude, riding very, very well, but at the same time, the class is at its brutalest I've ever seen. Is that discouraging or encouraging? Because on a night when you make the main event, you're lined up with the best in the world. But on the nights when you don't, sometimes it's like, man, it's not even really your fault. You might have rode well, but dude, there's so many good guys. So is it just night by night? And again, is it discouraging when there's that many good guys in the class, or is it encouraging because you get a chance to get in there and get on the results sheet with a list of like 14 champions on certain nights? You know what I mean? That is like, I could see that going both ways depending on how the night goes.
Yeah, it's both. You know, of course, no matter what the name is, you kind of have a result set in mind of where you think you should be. And if you don't get that, regardless of who's there, you know, if Tomac was in 19th and you got 20th, you'd be like, shoot, I wanted to get 19th or whatever it may be. Like, you have that result you kind of want to get and where you should be. And that's what gets discouraging. You know, like the other night, I pulled the whole, or 2 nights ago, I pulled the whole shot in the LCQ, and Freeze was in it, Bogle,
Anderson.
Yeah. So I didn't even like really realize those guys were in it until they were going by me. I'm like, oh man, we got to hang on here. And Potatelli ended up getting me in the last corner, and that would upset me. But I want to be, you know, I want to be like a top 15 guy right now. That's where I have a long way to get there. You know, those 3 spots are super, super hard, but that's where I mentally think I want to be. I want to be right around Chisholm and Tickle and those guys. I want to be battling with those guys for 20 minutes. And I think I could do it. And that was my goal in this main event, was like, okay, we're in it. Let's get a good start. Go absolutely as hard as you can. I don't care how hard I tank, if it's at 8 minutes, 12 minutes, 20 minutes, just go, go, go. And we were like 14th to 16th most of the time. And I was right with Tickle, Bloss, Chisholm, held them off for like 8, 9, 10 minutes or something like that. And then I started to get a little bit tired. But that right there, going into the next main event, I'm like, okay, like we'll keep pushing that endurance a little bit. And that's where I think I should be. I think I can run with those guys and be right in that 14th to 16th spot right now. So I don't really look too much to the name. You do, always you say you do. But I try not to, and I want to have that spot that I think I belong in right now, and that's my next goal I'm trying to get to, is be right there with those guys.
That's hard, man, to block out the list, because I think we all as riders, regardless if you try not to, you have a natural pecking order in your head, and you know where you are at the moment. But then I think back to my past in Supercross, there was times when I was in the most stacked heat race, I'm looking down the list going, God, how did I get in this one, man? And then I go out and get a good start and get fourth in the heat and beat a bunch of factory guys. And then there's been times where I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh yeah, I got that easy heat. And then I miss it because you lighten up. So, I mean, is that kind of how you have to approach it? Is, look, I might have 10 factory dudes in this heat race, or maybe 6. Don't even look at the list, because things can happen. You got, Jason Anderson going down in your heat race, or you got someone like Vince Freese who you're battling with, might hole shot and get third in that heat race. So is it just come down to you having to block it out, even though naturally, dude, the human gene, we can't help, but we're smart, man. We know, like, I know where I am on this list, but God, you got to just shut it off sometimes.
Yeah. And I think, all the people around me and my riding coach, Brian McDonald and Brian White, my dad, they all know where I should be. And I shouldn't say should be, because the result doesn't lie. Where I could possibly be.
Yeah, or where you want to be. Where you want
exactly. But I'll look at a list, sometimes, and I'll be like, oh, we have this, that. I can maybe get into 9th, and Brian will be like slapping the back of the head, like, dude, shut up. Like,
yeah,
go out there, get a good start, race it. You can end up, because in 2019 we had one good heat race. I got like 3rd to start, was running like 4th and 5th, ended up 7th. And that was a completely stacked heat race. And even to this day though, I'm like, oh no, like Chisholm, I would say like Chisholm is the guy I always look at. I'm like, maybe I can get him, maybe not. And then, so if he's like the 9th place guy on the list for qualifying, I'm like, oh man, like that's gonna be a push. But yeah, that's my biggest downfall. I always look at it, I psych myself out, but you never know. All I need to start worrying about is just getting a good start, ride as hard as you can. If you end up 12th, that's where you belong. If you ended up 6th, good. That worked out. So it's hard, as a racer, it's hard not to fall into that little rut and psych yourself out, think you're not good enough, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. It's that, the psychology would say it's fear of failure, right? You're like, you don't want to fail. So you think about what would happen if you fail, and then you fail because you think about failing, when if you just block it out. I mean, you could listen to Ken Roxon on the podium right now. He's just turn by turn, race by race. And I'd have to imagine that I think it weighed on him the last couple of years, just that pressure of being the guy. Even at that level, you got to shut the brain off sometimes. All we do is get in our own way. That's all we do. And you got to shut it off sometimes.
Yeah.
So moving on to the rest of the season then, again, stack class, you got goals, you're continuing to push. But we are in this kind of modified schedule where we're going into these residencies. Sometimes you can ride, sometimes you can't. How are you able to make the gains needed right now to maybe like get to that next spot? Like you said, get to that top 15 where it's like an every race thing. How are you able to do that right now? How do you keep yourself going even when you're at a house right now and it's snowing outside? That's a big challenge. I mean, you get better usually when you're on the bike. And if you're not on the bike, how are you finding a way to keep improving?
Right now it's more mental. Like I said, it's going to take a couple good main events like this weekend to just, I think, change my mental spot. I don't think, or at least I tell myself, all 99.9% of the work is going to be done preseason. So wherever you are right now, you're just playing with your mental ability, and you kind of need to find how good you can be in that season, because obviously you're not going to be from 20th to 10th or 8th in one season, but make those small goals and make those small wins for you to gain confidence mentally to make those next steps. And we're riding enough, between Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. Yeah, I would maybe like to ride on a Thursday or something, but with a season like 17 rounds of Supercross, I mean, it mentally becomes pretty challenging. You know, it's a lot of stress your body takes. It's a lot going on to make it race to race. And yeah, we are in the same spot, but like, you know, we were talking earlier, there's still things that are rolling every day and bikes that need to be prepped and parts need to be ordered, hotels, flights, truck drivers coming in. Like mentally, there's always so much going on. It takes a lot of stress out to where like, I want race day to come around. I don't think I'm going to gain anything tremendously on a practice day, especially if I was to go home and ride by myself, or back here, you know, it's snowing, you know, you'd have to find like a little indoor track. Like,
And what gains are you going to make on that? I mean,
yeah, you know, and the only thing like in between Houston and Indy, when we had that week off, I went home and all I did was starts. I went home because I was so bad at Houston, and we were way off, and I've never had to practice starts, but I was so off. I was like, I'm not even going to ride. Like, I don't care. Like, my riding is fine. Starts. And I went home and did, as a privateer, I probably like 60, 65 starts. That's hard on bikes. And I was a little bit worried.
When you're the one who has to order the parts, every one you're doing, you're like, I got to get another clutch. Usually the team's like, painful. Stop it.
Well, and I feel bad because, like, you know, Brian would have to do more work if I was to mess something up. But he told me, when I left Houston, he goes, do them till they blow up, like figure them out. So I was like, all right. So we went back and we luckily I did that day. And that's that kind of stuff you can work on, you know. But I don't think you're going to get any more speed right now or blah, blah, blah. You know, you're pretty based where you're at right now, that just mentally you need to start learning some things and start viewing things a different way, approaching things a different way. That's what the gains are going to be. And that's what my riding coach does super well with me, is each day, each weekend, we have a certain goal, and it's about getting faster, but it's to view how you need to get faster. It's not always about, you know, practicing. It could just, you're all in your head all the time, you know, and if you think you're going to be a guy, you're going to be that guy. And if you think you're not, you're not. So that's where I'm kind of sitting right now.
Brian McDonald is smart. I've known him for a long time. He's very smart. He's very technical. He breaks things down and analyzes, I think, at a really high level. What's it been like for you working with him? What does he notice about you that he can break down and try to improve? Because, again, I think you fundamentally ride like really, really good. But when you have an eye like his on you, you definitely can find the little things. What's he working on with you now compared to maybe, you know, in earlier years? Like right now, where are you at in your development with him?
I don't know if I could, you know, he would want me to exactly say what
we're
working on. But like I said, he's very particular on how you see yourself, and how you pick up a cup of coffee is going to how you affect, you know what I mean? Like certain things like that. He's so good at finding the wins, he calls them, finding the wins and finding the benefits, and doesn't matter what it is. Like doesn't even have to do with dirt bikes on race day. You know, he could say, hey, look, like, you know, your goal should be looking at this thing one way. He's so good at mentally trying to help you out and see things a different way, approach them a different way. You know, hey, yeah, you know, we got smoked. We didn't, you know, we qualified 39th and got 10th in the LCQ. But look, you were 0.10 second or a 10th faster in the whoops than you ever have been or something. You know, he's so good at breaking down a video, finding the wins, building your confidence, and seeing the benefits of it. You know, it's so hard to explain that. He's more of a mental coach than a riding coach, you know, because he's so good at viewing things that way that I think that's 2018 is when I was introduced to him. And I wouldn't show up to a race day without him, you know. And I remember sometimes he's not able to make it to some races, and I freak out. I'm so upset because he's not there. Excited. And you have that guidance, and you have someone who can always kind of cheer you up or pick up something and hold you accountable for something, but tell you how to fix it. That's what people need. And I think that's why he's so dedicated to the privateer aspect of it. You know, he helps some of the higher end guys, but he's been with them forever. He's the man. He's so good at trying to help each rider mentally to better themselves. Life, you know, it's not just racing, it's in life.
Yeah. And the mental side obviously is the hardest. I think when you focus on the negatives, it's one of those things where you just get discouraged and you lose belief in yourself. But I mean, I do the same thing with my son right now. He's 10 years old, racer. I notice a lot of bad things, but when he comes up the track, I always talk about those positives first. Like, man, that corner was so good. And that jump over there, I like how you're staying low. But then, hey, over here, there's these two spots. Let's go get these. Is he kind of like that kind of guy where it's, again, he's not going to avoid your negatives. He's not going to like just fluff you and tell you everything's great, but he's also going to say, look, let's make sure your mind is willing to accept the negatives by acknowledging the positives first. That way, when you go to break down the negatives, you don't beat yourself up because, man, you did some stuff right. So is that his way of kind of just approaching and make sure you just don't bury yourself mentally?
Absolutely. He'll hold you accountable for something, especially if he's seen you do it before.
Yep.
So he'll hold you accountable, and he'll look at you and be like, yo, what the heck, man? But at the same time, he's going to flip it and then be like, hey, look, you're doing it over here. Why can't you do it here? And then he'll show you, an example of someone else doing it. He's like, hey, look, at this point, he does this. At this point, he does this. This is how you need to do it. And then you kind of go, okay, because it's so hard when you're on the track to really process things and change something on the spot, because you kind of go in that auto mode of just being there. And so when he comes in after each practice and he's able to break things down and visually show you each step, how to make that change so you can observe it, or you can process it in your brain and kind of think about it before the time you go out there. It's just kind of automatic. He'll definitely hold you accountable. But that's what's good. He'll hold you accountable, look in the eye, yo, dude, like, are you kidding me right now? But then here's how you fix it. And that's what I think his benefit. Sometimes a lot of guys will be like, well, you need to do this, but okay, well, how do I do that? Like, I get so-and-so does it, but how did he do that? At what point does it start? What point can he stop it? So he's super good at how he does it.
I think it's easy for people to break you down by the things you do wrong, but if they don't have an answer on how to do it right, then zip it.
Always.
Give me an answer. Everyone can be a critic, but who can give you an actual answer? That's where you
everyone
special.
Everyone knows how to do it.
That's right. Maybe that's the hardest part of this game, though, the mental side. Obviously, what you guys do out there, I mean, I did it for a long time. It's physical, but man, I tell you what, these brains, these carburetors right here, if the pilot's running a little off, man, it makes everything go bad. So,
yeah.
Last question for you as we close down this interview. I know you're looking for little battles to win. You're obviously, it's a daily grind. You have little goals here and there that you want to accomplish. But if we were to look at the end of the season, say we get to Salt Lake City and you and I were to talk and look back, where do you want to be at the end of the year? Is it a place in points? Is it a certain amount of top 15s? Like, do you have like an actual, like, real set goal? Or is it just improve and get better and see how it happens? I mean, what are we shooting for? What would we be happy with when you and I talk in Salt Lake?
I mean, small term goals, of course, now that I've gotten an 18th, it's going to be beating that, right? But long term, we look at gaps off the leaders a lot, whether that's in 10th or 21st. In 2019, that's my best year. I got some 15th and stuff, but what was the gap off the leader? How far were you off that next step? That 10th place guy, that 5th place guy. And, I had a conversation with Brian McDonald and Brian White. That 18th that I got a couple of days ago was my best main event ride I've ever had. Regardless of the actual result, that was my best overall lap time.
You rode the best main of your life.
Exactly. So that was a huge step in the right direction, and that was a confidence booster I needed to wake me up. And that's what everyone was like, dude, like, regardless of the results. So I'm not looking at results. Yeah, results are great. Blah, blah, blah. Top 20 overall in the points would be great. Blah, blah, blah. I think I've given up a little too much points from the first few rounds to, that 20th spot, unless someone was unfortunate to get hurt. But just to match something like that, getting more main events and matching, that pace, racing with those guys, not just being there and riding and guys fall and you happen to get that position. Like, race that whole main event. Try not to get lapped twice. Try to only get lapped once or not get lapped or whatever it may be. Like, that was the first main event I haven't been lapped twice. But okay, well, so actually Kenny lapped me twice, but Kenny was the only guy. Normally half the field would lap me twice. So like that was a huge goal for me. It doesn't sound spectacular, obviously, you got lapped, but yeah, that was the best main event I've ever raced in the 450 class. And goals like that to keep pushing and close that gap in the leader. Try not to get lapped twice. Try to run up 12th as long as I can. That's my overall goal. I try not to set actual numbers because that's what lets you down. Just keep beating what your best result was, and that's the only way you can keep progressing at the right pace.
I mean, yeah, numbers are, I mean, you could come out at the next race and there's a first turn pileup and an issue. You get 13th place, but you might ride horrible. So what are you going to do? Go back and celebrate? Yeah, 13. It's like, I know what you're saying, because if that was the only thing that mattered, then yeah, sweet. But you got next week and next week and next week. So that horrible 13th really isn't doing you anything for where you're trying to get. It's just a number. So yeah. I understand that. And that's hard. I mean, I've had results in my career that were good, that were not, I didn't ride well. And then I've had some where I rode great. I mean, for me, my best ever, or my worst finish in 2009 was a 12th at the showdown. It was the best I rode. I was so happy after that main, because I charged all the way to the checkered flag. I left nothing on the table. That's where I belonged that night, and it was great. And then I had 7ths and 8ths where I rode horrible. So I'm with you on that, and that's a good way. Obviously, you got good people around you, and that kind of thinking is what will actually get you to the next step, you know?
Exactly. So that's what we're pushing for.
Right on, man. Well, so far, a good start to the season. Again, you're riding great. Congratulations on that last ride. I think you're going to build from it. Tough class, but at the same time, I mean, you're not going to get better without riding with guys like that. So I have to imagine that if you stay healthy, stay strong, and somehow continue to juggle the management roles here, I think we get to Salt Lake City. I'll bet you'll be pretty happy with it.
Yeah, no, making this whole season, honestly, because it's so hard. People don't understand the seconds that go by to not get hurt is so hard as it is to, you know. So keep progressing, but at the right speed, taking the proper steps to get there and not making a jump too big, and making sure we're at the last round, and then not even the last round, but to carry it over into the summer and into next season. You know, you make one step too much, then you go backwards. So making the proper steps, keep progressing, breaking down what we need to, and just as long as we get through this whole season and learn and keep moving to the next year.
Well, congratulations on the way you're riding. Congratulations on what you guys are building over there. And I look forward to seeing how the rest of this year plays out. And if I had to guess, I think it'll go pretty well. And thanks for joining me, for sure, here on Beyond the Track. It's been awesome.
No, thank you very much for having me. Love sharing my stories, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Thank you.